Welcome. This video is going to introduce you to Fusion, formerly known as Fusion 360. It's a cloud-based 3D modeling program for industrial designers. And so this video is just going to introduce us to the interface and also going through and creating our first three-dimensional object like what we can see on the screen at the moment. So getting started, our main sort of canvas here is our workspace where we're going through and designing our objects. Down the bottom we have our navigation and display bar, but please go through and grab one of the external mice to make modeling a lot easier. As we start orbiting around our three-dimensional objects, it's much easier using the external mice. Feel free to download this file, which will be available, and also sort of play pause to go through it at your own pace. So once we've done that, and you've got your external mice plugged in, to orbit around an object, you want to hold Shift and press in the scroll wheel, so then we can orbit around the object quickly and easily. Then if I'm just pressing in the scroll wheel and going left and right, up and down, or we can zoom in and out by using the scroll wheel. And it's cursor sensitive, so wherever the cursor is where it's going to zoom in. And so if you don't have an external mice, that's obviously these tools down here. Another one is our layout grid, which is really helpful to have turned on. Sometimes you might accidentally turn that off, and sometimes you want to turn on Snap to Grid. But in this case, let's not worry about that. And then the display settings, similar. So you might accidentally turn it on to wireframe or one of the other the visual styles, which might be like with hidden edges. But the default visible edges only is a great option. Then let's begin modeling. So I'm just going to create a new document. And we're going to go through and make, rather than 3 steps, let's make it a quick 2 steps. So looking back at our step, what we're going to go through and do is essentially draw a box with 3 divides. So it looks like that. And then we're going to extrude it up. So jumping back here. And so to go through and do that, when we're modeling in Fusion, we do what we call a parametric modeling. So we start off with a 2D shape, as we can sort of see on the screen at the moment, and then we're applying some sort of 3D command to it. And so that might be an extrude, or it might be a revolve, so on and so forth. So let's go through and do that stage. So create sketch, and our Fusion's asking us which profile we want to be drawing upon, or plane, sorry. So let's draw on the ground plane, and now we're in bird's eye view, and notice this is all changed to 2D shapes. So it is intuitive and adaptable. So in Fusion, you'll notice we're constantly going between this sort of sketch interface and our solid interface. So to create our shape, we want to be in sketch interface. And so we're creating a rectangle, and I'm just going to type in 100, and then you can press tab and then 100. And so therefore we have a shape that we could turn into a 3D object. Now we want to make it a step, so we're just going to use a line tool. And if I hover over, we'll get that little triangle. So that tells us we're at that midpoint, and I'm just joining that up. And, whoops, select off. And now I'm happy with that. 100 by 100. These little icons, don't worry about them. They're just called constraints, and they'll automatically start being applied. And now what we're going to do is just introduce you to the view cube. So if I hit the little home, that's going to snap to that isometric front-on view. You can select the top, you can rotate around it, but generally going to hit home. And so that's just another option to sort of orbit around it. When you're finished and happy with your sketch, select Finish Sketch, and notice we're back in that solid where we can now create this into 3-dimensional shape. So what we're going to do is apply an extrude, adds depth to open or close sketch profiles, and faces to become essentially bodies. And we're going to select our first little step, and let's raise that up 40. And notice that this is going to create it as a new body. If this hasn't appeared, you might just need to make that more visible, and then select OK. Now on the left-hand side, you'll have the browser. And this is where we can select objects and change our sketches. So we can toggle the visibility of the body. We can open up, and you might have noticed our sketches disappeared, but if we turn it back on, we can then see that. You can select them if you need to. So if we expand that, we can go through and select it, and we can edit within that feature as well. So this is sort of like our layers palette if we're being in Adobe programs. And you'll also notice down the bottom we have our what we call our timeline or our feature tree, and this is the process of how we've gone through and designed it. So if I snap it all the way back to there, I can press play and it'll do it quite quickly, or I can go snap it back to the start and then each sort of step. Now what we want to do is erase the back step. So this we've got extrude, but this time I'm just going to quickly show you the difference between extrude and press pull, which there really isn't. As Fusion's developed, they've kept sort of both tools. So you might have noticed and gone, why is there an extrude and a press pull? So I'll make that back step. I'm just selecting it and I'm dragging it up. Let's go up 80. And I'll zoom out a little bit. And so you can play around with these, changing the distance. You can change around if you want it to taper, where you can change it, the taper angle here or here. You could change it, it will default as a join. If I wanted these as different material types of step, I'd change that to a new body. So this could be maybe concrete, this one could be brick. And then when I'm happy with the end result, I'm going to go okay. And so notice down here, we've then got our first step and we've got our second step. And what we can do is we can always change any of these. So even if we want to change the sketch and go edit sketch, I can do that. And maybe I want to change that figure to maybe only 50. Go okay. And other features you might want to go through and do is modify the sketch. So sometimes you might want to trim off areas of a design, or you need to offset it. These are really helpful ones, Filet and also Chamfer. So we can finish that sketch. And then often once you've created the body, we're then going to modify that. And so we might be applying a fillet to the top of the step. We can press that in a little bit, or we might be applying a chamfer to the bottom step. So feel free to go through and experiment with the 3D modeling, knowing we can always go through and change those features as we develop them in the feature tree. Thanks for watching.